pleasure to be presenting to you today. My name is Lorena Segovia, and I'll be presenting to you about the advising role you didn't know you had. Before I move forward and tell you about myself, I'd like to share the agenda topics I'm going to be covering. These are theories I believe are connected to an advisor, but also more importantly to a leader, and then more importantly than that, to you. So I'm going to be talking about leadership. I'm going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, locus of control, power sources, motivation and leadership, job enrichment, the Pygmalion effect, followership, communication, and coaching. Okay, so let's talk about me. I first entered the campus of California State University, San Bernardino in the fall of 1995. I began working in the campus bookstore in the textbook department. On July 3rd, 1996, my life changed, and not just because it was my 19th birthday. I was hired by the Case Credentials office as a student assistant. It was here that I began my career journey without even knowing it. I learned about good customer service, the ins and outs of the university, and the impact I could have on a student's life. In 1997, the full-time front counter administrative assistant decided to leave, and I was asked to step in on an emergency basis. This was a little bit scary for me because I was also a full-time student, but I decided to take the opportunity. In June 2001, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I worked my way up to an administrative assistant too. I continued working in the credentials office because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. Then in 2008, I decided to begin my master's in counseling and guidance and move into an administrative coordinator position with the Department of Nursing. I continued as such until I completed my master's degree in 2011, and I was reclassified into the Student Services Professional Series. After a few years, I left to advance in the SSP series, and I currently work for the College of Extended and Global Education as the academic advisor for the Criminal Justice Online program. I share all of this with you, not because I want to show off that I'm probably going to be graduating from the CSU system at an early age, but because I understand the role that you guys play as administrative support assistants, coordinators, and even analysts. So why am I discussing leadership? Well, many advisors are seen as leaders. We are individuals who are given power to help guide students to achieve their goal. But leadership isn't something that's given. It's something that we have within us, something you as the front line for your department have as well. Your knowledge, your expertise, your power, because yes, you do have power. And I'm gonna talk about that later on in the presentation, but I want you to know that you have power. And it's these things that can easily help guide a student. So there's 5 key elements of leadership. Let's first talk about leaders and followers. The idea here is that it's in an interchangeable role, meaning that sometimes you're going to be the leader and sometimes you're going to be the follower. Leadership is something that is so easy, and it's something that we do every day and you don't even think about it. For example, let's say you and your significant other are deciding what to have for dinner. They don't know what they want. They're kind of indecisive. They're really having any cravings. You step in and you say, it's spaghetti for dinner. You've just taken on the leadership role. It was simple, and it's not something you normally think about, but that was a leadership role. You took that and your significant other followed you, and now you guys are having spaghetti for dinner. Same thing holds true when we work with students. You doing your job day in and day out provides you the expertise and knowledge that a student would not have. When they ask for your assistance, they're looking to you to lead them. When a student comes in with a particular situation that you haven't encountered, or it's something that you're not too sure about, then they've taken the leadership role because now you are learning a new process. You are learning about a way to handle this situation. So that student's situation has now taken the leadership role, and you are being the follower, going in through the situation and finding out what you can do. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about influencing. So the process of a leader is communicating their ideas, gaining the acceptance of those ideas, and motivating the followers to support and implement those ideas through change. The reason this is so important is because influence is power. Let me say that one more time. Influence is power. We influence people every day. Every single day we influence people. Our actions with them can make a person's day a good one or a bad one based on how we interacted with them. Essentially, we can empower someone or discourage someone from taking on new ventures. So just think about a time when you were having a bit of a crummy day and a total stranger walks by you and gives you a big smile. That kind of changes your perspective a little bit, right? You then maybe want to continue smiling, or maybe you smile when you see the next stranger pass you by. Okay, it's simple things like that. Another example, when I held a job in a department where students needed to be highly competitive, I'll let you guess which one that was, in order to be admitted, I had to be the person to explain to those individuals that didn't make it that they had been denied and why. So I needed to make sure that even though the conversation was not going to go the way that they wanted, that I left that conversation and held that conversation in goodwill, that I chose the words that I used wisely so that I could inspire them to realize that this didn't have to be the end, right? Because if I just did it in a way that wasn't all inviting or I wasn't very open with them, I could crush their dreams right then and there. So it's very, very important to make sure how positive you are with them. Now, change. So change is brought on by leaders when they ask their followers for input. To change that status quo, you need to receive the input, okay? And then you want to continuously improve work processes and develop new and innovative products and services. Change is instrumental and it's continuous. For example, with all the changes that happen and everyone working from home and things having to go online a lot, it was our admin staff that came to the forefront to say, okay, how do we make this process electronic? How do we get things working? And, they took the charge to say, okay, this is what needs to get done. And this is how the students are going to ask us for this. And how do we make that more accessible to them? And they put that kind of information out on the website. They're also the ones who were taking the issues and saying, okay, guys, this isn't working. This is not gonna, get things done. These are the things we're hearing from our students. And then it allowed us to make the changes that we needed to do to make our service accessible, okay? So we wanna make sure that we are staying flexible, that we are continuously refining our skill set. Then there's people. Well, it's just that. People make up the organization, staff, students, faculty. Leadership is about leading these people through the relationships that you have with them. As I'm sure you know, people are vital to that organization, right? And we're only good as all of our parts put together, right? We make that organization whole by making sure that all the parts fit together and all the parts are working well together. And as I mentioned, power is influence. Therefore, it's essential that we maintain and cultivate relationships with our students, that these relationships help us ensure that we are serving them and that we're being useful and effective symbols of our organization so that we work well. Now, the organizational objectives. So any organization has goals that they have to meet, right? So then we want to make sure in this academic background that we have a tone that encourages and is inclusive, not exclusive to people, that we work together toward the outcome that has been set and that both the leader and the followers want to achieve as well. As professionals, collaboration is key. Through the collaborative efforts that we have, we can learn and benefit from our experiences and the knowledge of others. If you recall, in my introduction, I mentioned that I decided to pursue my master's degree, but in reality, what I should have said is that I was pushed into pursuing it. I'd been working as a full-time admin for about 10 years when the Department of Education decided to hire an advisor to help individuals looking to pursue a credential program. One day, when I was helping a student navigate through how they were going to reach their goals, the assistant dean of the college overheard me. After I was done, she pulled me aside and she wanted to know why I had done that, okay? Why I was giving that student guidance. I didn't call it guidance. I call it doing my job, okay? But to her, she thought that was something that the advisor should have been handling. But what she wasn't aware was that the student had already been to the advisor. And because he was new to the campus, he didn't know how the system worked. And the assistance that he gave wasn't enough. It wasn't enough of an answer. So the student came in to see us. And although, this individual had that master's degree, he lacked that experience. And that didn't mean that I was better than him, right? It didn't mean that my experience outweighed his education. It just meant that he didn't have the expertise. He had the education and he had the knowledge under certain areas, but he didn't have the years of experience that I had. And he wasn't better than me by having the education because it was something that I didn't have at that time. But it was a matter of us working together in order to be able to collaborate and get the student's goal met. And that's kind of what was going on at the time, even though my assistant dean didn't really see it. So let me talk a little bit about the characteristics that make up a leader. And I want to make sure that I say these because I want to make sure that you start to see that these are characteristics within yourself, okay? So one of the first characteristics is directing. And then there's motivating, guiding, and managing people. And you're probably thinking, well, I don't have that. So let me give you examples on how I can show that you do. So when a student comes in and they're not quite sure about a certain procedure or a policy that is in place, and you explain that to them, you're directing them. You're directing them to how to get that done. When a student comes in and maybe they're frustrated or they don't think they can achieve this goal of getting the policy or the procedure met, and you give them a simple, it's okay, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it, you can do this. Those simple words, you are motivating them. Okay. When a student is being overwhelmed by a situation and a lot of information is coming at them from all different angles, and the language, the words and the lingo that is being used seems foreign to them, and you understand that and you simplify it for them, you're guiding them. When you are given direction or you're helping to assist in a decision, you're managing people, okay? It's that simple. You have these characteristics in you. As I previously mentioned, your words and the actions that you have can create change. And that's very important because great leaders inspire and create that social change. And you want to make sure that that is something that you are doing. And remember, it's simplistic. Being a leader is not that difficult. Society, though, has ingrained in us that only a few people can be leaders. And when we think of leaders, we think of, directors and coordinators and managers and VPs and provosts and presidents. But they are leaders, but so are you. Okay. And I want you to remember these characteristics as we move along in the presentation, because everyone has the potential to use these characteristics to be a good leader. So one of the first theories that I wanted to talk to you about today is about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the reason I want to bring out this theory is because it's simplistic needs that we all have, right? So we all have the simplistic needs of physiological needs. We need air, water, food, shelter, clothing, etc. We have safety needs. We have love and belonging. We have self-esteem or esteem, right? And it's to get us to the goal of self-actualization, right? The holy grail. You have that. I have that. Students have that, okay? When students are coming into college, they're not really knowing what to expect. Maybe this is the first time they've been away from home. Maybe they're experiencing a lot of changes. Maybe they're coming in feeling really insecure. They're not sure about the degree the major they selected or the degree they plan on pursuing. Maybe they're not even sure about the college that they selected. Okay. So they need to have a sense of belonging. They need to have a sense of connection. They need something to bring them together, to get that esteem to be able to succeed in the college. And how is that going to happen? With the interactions they have with you, with the interactions they have with advisors, with the interactions they have with faculty members. You are all being a part of these levels that they need to get to the holy grail of self-actualization, which could be completing their degree. Okay, so what I want to talk to you next about is locus of control. So locus of control is broken down into two parts: externalizers and internalizers. Externalizers believe that they don't have control over their situation and it's completely determined by fate. These individuals are less likely to try things, and they tend to not try things because they doubt themselves. They doubt their capabilities. Whereas internalizers, they believe that they are the ones controlling their fate by their behavior. Although we understand that locus of control is something that's within us, it's important that we continue to motivate ourselves and motivate the students that we interact with to be internalizers. Okay, so in other words, we want to think positively as we really start to look about how we dictate our own fate. Somebody who's more positive is more likely to involve themselves in new experiences. So encouraging students to join clubs or participate in activities or volunteer in the community, is very vital. I myself have done my best to be part of committees where I can be a voice for staff and students. I'm currently on the staff council board. I'm a steward for my union, and I'm the chair of our college staff success committee. And those are just to name a few, because I really am a part of a lot of communities and sometimes way too many. But that's the type of person that I am, because I like to use that as a way for me to network and to work with individuals that I normally wouldn't get to work with on a daily basis. And I try to use those relationships that I cultivate to be able to help myself and to help my colleagues and to help students by sharing those types of relationships when it's needed. Okay. And this networking, opens up new opportunities, not just for the students and the people that you're helping with, but also for yourself. And it also allows us to explain our firsthand experience as an internalizer and motivate the students and let them see that, hey, they can do it too. And it might encourage them to be able to get involved and become change and to get that self-esteem that they need to also help them get that actual self-actualization that's needed. Okay, so let's talk about your power. Remember at the beginning, I told you had power. So I'm going to explain what kind of power you have. Okay. And before we move forward with that, I want to make sure that we understand that sometimes power has a negative connotation, right? But I want you to always remember that power is neutral. Power will only be negative if you take it in a negative direction and you let it go to your head and you want to take over the world and you want to become the evil dictator. Okay, you can do that. However, you can also take power and have it be something that can be positive. Now, the power that you currently have right now is your position power. That's the power that the position you have in gives you. All right. So someone, a higher power, has said, you are an administrative coordinator, and here are the duties that you have. Okay. Now, your personal power is what you take of all of that. So when you take the position power that you have, all the skills, the knowledge, the expertise that you've gained, and you then use it to help somebody, you are taking that personal power to steer that person, that student, into achieving their goal. Now, if you choose not to share that power and you don't share all the information that you may have, or you don't provide that information, you could easily steer a student in the wrong direction. Okay. So what you want to make sure that you're doing and you're understanding is that you control the power that you have, and you are going to be able to share that by simple assistance to a student and helping them succeed. Okay. So again, wanting to be a good leader and being somebody that's out there is making sure that you share your power to give empowerment. That's a successful leader right there. That's a good leader right there. Okay. And that's something that I'm sure you are doing every day in your job when you are helping students. Okay, so what other kinds of powers are there? They're a little bit related to your position and your personal power, but let's just talk about them briefly. We have legitimate power. Okay, so this is, again, power that is given to you. So that's kind of like your position power. Somebody from a higher up says, this is what your job is, this is what your role is. Here you're responsible for answering the phone, keeping the department budget, maintaining the website, making sure the forms are up to date, all that stuff. That's legitimate power. You have that power to make those changes. Information power is what you've obtained from your experiences and the resources that you have come in contact with, right? Connection power is the power you have with others. So connecting, not only with just your coworkers, with faculty, with students, but even members of the community, right? Having that good working relationship, having that, coalition can go a long way. So for example, let's say you have a good working relationship with somebody in financial aid. You've created this coalition by being able to communicate with this person and ask questions of this person. And a student comes in and they tell you, I have no idea what's going on with my financial aid, right? So you don't have expertise in that area. But now you can recall and say, hey, I have a buddy down in financial aid that I can refer you to. And you contact that person and say, I'm sending over Joey to talk with you because they have questions. You just used your power that you've created in that connection power to help that student. Even though you weren't able to provide them the information that they were looking for, you were able to use a part of your power. Now, reverent power. So this is where the user's personal relationship is giving us power. So for example, you work well with Susie. Susie comes in, Susie has a big problem. She doesn't know what to do. You use all the power within you, all the resources to help her finish what she needed to do, to process whatever paperwork so that she can move on and graduate. Okay. Susie's having lunch with Bobby, and Bobby says, oh my God, I don't know what to do, Susie. I don't know what to do. I just don't think I'm going to graduate because this and this and this happened. And Susie looks at him and says, you know what, Bobby, you need to go talk to Lorena because I had a similar problem. And she told me to do X, Y, and Z. And now I'm able to graduate. Susie has just given you referent power, okay? She has just referred him to you. Just like earlier, you referred him to your buddy in financial aid. You gave your buddy that power. Now, Susie has given you that power with Bobby to say, here's this expert. Here's this person that can help you, all right? Now, expert power. Again, based on your skills and your knowledge that you have as you're working, right? As you're gaining the experiences, the days are going by, you are collecting all this information and you are learning how to exceed in your job, in your position. And this power that you have can then be continued on and given to someone. And it's also very important to understand that you should always be working on continuing and refining your power, right? Whether it's through trainings or education or just time. Now let's talk about motivation and leadership, because these kind of things go hand in hand in the sense of, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are you telling me about being a leader? Okay. Well, there is theorists who have come up with a motivational process. And in this graph, you'll see this circle that starts off with need. And when we talk about need, we talk about what is the need that is going to effectively reach as many students as possible, right? What is the need that we have at hand? And then we're going to say, okay, we know what the need is. So what's the motive? What's the motive for it? Because we need to have some kind of motive to tell us why we're taking this action, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. But basically, we have this goal. We have a department goal. We have a job goal. We get evaluations, and these are goals that are listed on there. So we are going to make sure that we're meeting the department requirements by helping the students that we said we're going to help. And how are we going to do that? Because that's behavior. So now we're going to think about the behavior tactics that we're going to use to achieve that goal. And what are we going to do? We're going to try to be open. We're going to try to be positive. We're trying to be friendly, transparent, patient, and inclusive. That way we can try to help ease the anxiety of the students, and we can assist them in getting whatever it is that they needed. Now, what are the consequences to that? Well, if we are thinking about what the goal is, the consequences is if we are all these things, right? We are all these positive things, then we are going to achieve that goal. If we don't, then we're not going to achieve that goal, which moves us on to satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Positive outcome will give us the satisfaction. The student will be satisfied. We will be satisfied. Our department will be satisfied because it's meeting their goals. If we don't, there's going to be people with an unhappy with the outcome. They're going to have the dissatisfaction that comes with not being able to achieve that. Maybe we didn't meet our goals. Maybe we didn't help the student, and now they're not going to graduate. So we need to make sure we look at it from that angle. And then feedback. And it looks like a little weird to have feedback in this motivation process, but the reason they have feedback in there is because of the fact that it's a tool. It's a tool that we can use. And if we properly assist students, their feedback can be encouraging for us. And it can help you continue the behavior that you were using to continue to get those types of those goals met, right? Receiving positive feedback can essentially help to increase our engagement and our motivation. And that brings me to our next topic that I want to talk to you guys about, which is job enrichment, because this one is a big one. This is a really, really big one. So it's essential to all of us because we need to make sure that we have this motivation to keep us coming back to work, right? It keeps our work stimulating. It keeps our work interesting. We need to make sure that we feel like we matter in our job, especially since most of us spend more time at work than we do at home. Not recently with the pandemic, but on norm, we are there. We are spending, 40 hours and, sometimes even longer, depending on what's going on. And so we need to feel like we matter. We're doing something to be a big contributor to this. And the relationship that you have chosen to build with students, or you will choose to build with students, helps us do that. So for me, for many years, I was involved with the commencement process. So I would be in our den and I would be lining up our students, and I basically would be pumping them up, getting them ready, giving them the directions of what's going to happen and what is going to go on once we get into the arena and the ceremony starts. But they actually were pumping me up. I was feeling their excitement. I was feeling their joy. And, they were like, unbelievable. They couldn't believe that they had come, that they were there. I would see their decorated commencement hats, and they were giving shout outs to their parents, or talking about how they did it, or how proud they were of themselves. That was great. And these were people that I hadn't even interacted with. The people that I actually did interact with, the joy that I felt when I saw them walk across the stage was just something I can't even explain to you. I actually was fortunate enough that because of my involvement, I would actually be able to be there right before they walked up to the stage to get their diploma cover and make their way across. And I would stand there and I would shake their hands, or I would hug them, and I would tell them how proud I was of them, and congratulate them on their achievement. Even with students who I had a rocky time with, it was good to see them get through. They may not have thought that I had their best interest at heart, but seeing them cross that stage proved that I was there to get them through. They may not have known, everything that I was doing in the background, but I knew. And, I made sure that they had less hurdles to do. And that was great. Now, what also was great was during the regular year, when students would come by and say hello and chat, and they knew what my favorite coffee drink order was, and they would stop by with it to say hello, or, just to let me know how things were going. That was always great too. So there was good perks to that. And it always made me feel uplifted to have that, knowing that, I made a difference. Even reading some emails now from students who tell me, like, thank you so much for being there for me, or for helping me out with that situation. Those relationships, some of them are actually even continue on today. And I can actually even say that some of those relationships turned into friendships that I continue with. And some of them are even like family to me now. And I know that I can count on them just as much as they can count on me, even to this day, even if they're no longer associated with the university. So let's talk about the next theory, which is the Pygmalion effect. And the reason I want to talk about this is because, as you'll see in the chart, our actions towards others impact others' beliefs about us, which causes others' actions towards us to reinforce our beliefs about ourselves, which then influence our actions towards, and it continues on and on. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's so, so important for us to know about this, because the attitude that you have and the treatment of others helps to predict how you're going to behave, right? So you want to make sure that you understand that the more helpful you are towards students, the more open and inclusive you are, the more positive tone, positive body language, you provide the necessary resources, you don't get frustrated, et cetera, the more of that you do, the more the students will feel like they can return to you for assistance. And you are shaping them and you're molding them, okay? You are helping them see that. Even when it's tough love, right? You are inspiring them to go above and beyond. So the reason the Pygmalion effect has its name is because of the fact that it's based off a Greek philosopher who was also an artist. And he fell in love with his art. Like, he fell in love with his art. His art was this world to him. And the whole idea behind it was that if you truly see the potential in students, they are going to see the potential in themselves. You are a mirror for them. They are seeing their reflection through your eyes. And it's positive and it's uplifting. Okay. And that's why it changes how you can perceive things, and even lift up your spirits on a bad day. Okay. All right. So let's go and talk a little bit more about followership. So effective followership is the roles that followers see themselves in and how they're functioning. It basically means that there's no such thing as a small part. If you see yourself as an instrumental piece in the department, you're going to function as an instrumental piece in your department. It's important to realize that although a leader, a manager, supervisor, whatever, can orchestrate a vision for the department, it is the followers who actually execute the vision. So followers, effective followers, not only execute, but they assist in creating the vision. Okay. So the meat of it is, every position, regardless of their status or responsibility, is instrumental to the overall success of a department. Even if you're entry level, or you've been there for over 20 years, you influence and you make a difference because you're constantly making sure that the department is running in a way that is going to effectively serve the goals of the department, of the campus, of whatever has been set. Okay, you are able to carry that out. And when you pass that along to your students, they are effectively able to carry that out. Okay, because they have effective followers will have that motivational skill set, right? They're going to be critical thinkers as well. When someone is effective in their job, they're going to rely on the knowledge and experience that they have to assist people in whatever it is that they encounter. You know, the input and the knowledge that you have can assist and illustrate the color and the texture that is needed for the culture of the department too. For example, I had a student come in and they were at their wit's end, just completely at their wit's end because they had received another denial letter. And at the time, I didn't know that she was ready to throw in the towel on her educational goal. I knew she was upset. I just didn't realize that she was about ready to quit. But after talking with her and offering my knowledge and including what I like to call loopholes, but they're basically pointers, right? Because it's the knowledge that I have. I can see what's been submitted on the applications, and I can see and know what has worked in the past for other people. And I share that with her, right? Without obviously divulging too much information, but I shared that with her. I told her, here are the types of things that you can do to score better. Okay. And when she left, she felt a little bit more refreshed, or she looked refreshed to me. Later that year, during the next admission cycle, she got admitted. And so she had to come in and turn in paperwork to me. And at that time, as she sat there in front of me, she told me what she was feeling that day. And she told me that when she left, she felt that this next time with making the changes, she was going to get in. And she was so grateful that I was the person who was working that front desk that day. And she knew, she had that positivity in her that I had given her, that it was going to happen for her. So when she got that letter of acceptance, I mean, it was a surprise, but also was just, something that she had already felt was going to happen. All of this is for me to tell you that you just never know how it can impact a person's life just by adding a little extra into your job duties. It can make a world of difference. And speaking of breaking world of difference, how do we do that? How are we doing that in our everyday? Well, it's through communication, and communication is so essential. It is so essential. I can't emphasize that enough, because communication is the process of conveying information and meaning. True communication takes place when all parties understand the message from the same perspective. Using my previous example, I understood from the student that her goal, what her goal was, and I provided information that she took and she applied to change her outcome. So that brings me to two important parts of communication: sending and receiving messages. So it would actually also leads us into the next slide, which is the message and receiving process. And here I'm going to talk about how we go about do this, how we're going to receive the message. Okay. So it comes down to listening, analyzing, and checking for understanding. And when we're listening, we're paying attention. We're fully engaged. We're being present. We're not assuming things, and we're not interrupting. We tend to have the tendency to try to decode messages before they're actually completed. And therefore, we start to assume that we have the correct interpretation when we really don't, right? So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what is being said. And we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what's not being said. It's been estimated by researchers that 70 to 92% of what is communicated is nonverbal. 70 to 92% is nonverbal. meaning that we can communicate through our facial expressions, body stance, hands, tone, actions, all of that. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're taking note of that. How are the students trying to convey their information? And we also need to make sure that we take care of that when we're actually answering, which I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we're also making sure that we're asking questions and taking notes to make sure that the message that we're getting, if it's like very complex and a little all over the place, that we're getting the details down so that we're understanding what is being said. Okay, and then we start to analyze what's happening. Right, we want to analyze what was actually said, and we want to wait till we're done listening. Right, we want to find. We want to make sure that we're being engaged in something, that we're not being engaged in something that is partially listening, right? That we're being, that we're actually there. Because when we're partially listening, we're not actually fully analyzing what is being said. Okay. And I know you guys out there who have kids, you guys tend to do this a lot and you guys are expert at this. But we need to make sure that when we're listening to a student problem, that we are active listeners. So we are remaining engaged, remaining objective, and we're not letting our emotions get into this, right? Because we want to make sure the opinions that are being given or that we may have are not distorting the message that is being trying to be delivered. So we want to make sure that we completely understand what is going on. And we want to make sure that we are then at the end checking for that understanding, where we're paraphrasing, where we've watched for those nonverbal cues, where we can say, okay, if I got this correctly, here's what I've heard from you. Okay, we want to make sure that we have that understanding so that we can then in turn provide them with that assistance and provide them with the information that they're looking for. And we're going to do that through the oral message sending process. So we're going to develop a rapport. We're going to try to put them at ease, maybe make some small talk, and then get the person ready to receive the message that we're going to give them, because sometimes it may not be a good answer, right? It's not going to be the answer that they're looking for. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're going to be helpful. It's going to be helpful for the receiver to know the desired end result before we start giving all the details. Okay. We don't want to start bombarding them immediately. And then when we get ready to give our message, we're going to give clear instructions of what you want them to do. And then we're going to ask them if they have questions, or we're going to ask them to paraphrase what you just said to make sure that we're checking for their understanding. And then we're going to get them to commit to an action or a follow-up, right? So we're going to tell them if it's something that has to come back to us, we're going to say, okay, so you're going to go, you're going to take this form and you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'll see you back here at the end of the week or next week. Or you're going to do this and you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you need to go to that other department by a certain time. Give them that structure to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. Now, the next theory I want to talk to you guys about is coaching. So coaching is the process of giving motivational feedback to maintain and improve performance. Okay. And here's some guidelines that I have on here. And I want to talk about a few of them. And the first one is to avoid blame and embarrassment. This is kind of pretty simple, right? So we want to make sure that when a student comes in, we're not adding to their embarrassment. We're not blaming them for something that they didn't do. We're understanding of the situation. For example, let's say a student comes in because they're on academic probation. They're already worried about what's going to happen to them. They already know that they're in trouble, right? Quote unquote in trouble. So we want to make sure that when we're talking with them, that they are coming in maybe upset, but they're going to be leaving with a better mindset than when they came in. All right. We also want to make sure that we're providing the resources that they need. that that we're thinking about the resources that are going to be user friendly for them and available to them, and that they're getting the information in a way that they're going to be able to get it and use it. All right. As coaches, we want to make sure that we're helping to train and also direct students so that they can use these resources in the future. Remember, we're molding the students. We're trying to also make sure that they're going to be able to be self-sufficient at the same time, right? So we need to make sure that we're providing these resources for that purpose as well, and letting them know, hey, I'm here for you, but I also need you to know that you can always go and find this on your own and move forward with this. I believe in you. You can do this. And then lastly, similar to avoiding blame and embarrassment, don't criticize. When we criticize, they may look negatively upon the department, and then they might start to feel resentment, and then they're not going to get that connectivity. They're not going to come back, and they're going to continue to keep making the mistakes that are calling them into your office, or requiring them to go into your office, and you're going to have to be dealing with them in that sense. And they're not going to want to. They're not going to want to hear the message that you have for them, and it turns into a bad relationship. Well, I think I've given you guys all the information that I can to make you understand and see yourself as a leader, and that you've been doing this the whole entire time. So I'm going to leave you with this quote. All growth is a leap in the dark, a spontaneous, unpremeditated act without the benefit of experience. And I give you this quote because it's so beneficial to the core of this presentation, because oftentimes we devalue our lives and the positions that we have based on the fear that we have. Regardless of whatever position a person may have, anybody can be a force of change. We simply need to have the nerve to jump into the unknown. This is essentially the core of what it means to grow and improve. And I highly encourage all of you to grow and see yourselves as the leaders that I already know you are. I thank you for being here today and for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.